Hi, you're tuned in for the Power and Energy News channel, ESI Africa. For this episode, I am speaking with Joe Dean, who is the Executive Director for EnerJ Carbon Management and the spokesperson for CISA in South Africa. Well, welcome to the studio, Joe.
Thank you very much.
Let's talk a little bit about your various roles that you have, just to get a bit of a starting point, because you're chairperson of an association as well as some other positions that you hold.
Okay. Well, primarily, my first love and my actual job is carbon project development. So doing baseline audits in carbon and trying to encourage a circular economy within decarbonisation, which was very advanced, I think, for a South African market to be receptive. A good few years ago, I did a lot of my training offshore with Illinois and then with the GHG protocol. And that's like, I was very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in South Africa, going to change the world. And the reality sort of hit home, and one has to craft a way that you can make it and package it with triple bottom line returns for clients, that they can encourage them. And in that, I sort of started affiliating myself with the associations. And energy, not to coin a adage, but is the low-hanging fruit, can I say, to creating that stimulus, so that we can actually encourage reinvestment into the water nexus and the reforestation and all the other waste areas that we should be looking at. Right. And so I was with SAFIA for a very long time, and out of that came the need to develop the South African Energy Storage Association, of which we're very proud. It's a nascent industry, it's a disruptor, it's looking at things from a totally different focus, which is very exciting, and then also taking the storage to a more technical level with the South African Institute of Electrical Engineers. So we have the energy storage chapters there. And what sort of stems from all of this is the lack of awareness, the lack of knowledge. I mean, if you had to look around at where we are today, there's the most amazing technologies. And if you look at all the plenaries and seminars and things, we've got topics on wheeling, we've got topics on everything, but no one's joining those dots. And I think that's where our role now is to create that, to bridge those divides, to be able to make that sort of connection. And I think out of that drives the energy transition, because it's sort of coming in hips and little stops and starts, and it's a little bit stranded.
Yes. So, yeah. I think it's a long journey that we're going to go down. So let's start with the C&I market, the commercial and industrial sector, and self-generation. That is a hot topic here in South Africa at the moment. But without battery storage, as we know, it's only half of our solution. So what are the most common overlooked areas when we consider battery storage for a commercial and industrial plant?
I think if we had to rewind to 2 years ago, and we had to look what were the drivers. I think drivers for anybody investing into the renewable first. I think the people make the first transition is, I'm going to take that step for the PV, but the storage is a bridge just a little bit too far, and there wasn't a drive and a push for it. So you had people already actively thinking that they wanted reduction in pricing, and it's amazing how it's changed over the 3 years. What the drivers are for implementing what we would then say hybridization. So if you went back then, it was really chasing price. They wanted to put a couple of PV panels on the roof and reduce their price. Then came pressures of the insecurity of supply, which we have, the load shedding, but also one small driver that tweaks a lot of interest is the escalations. Right, the pricing escalation. So we've got a very, very erratic pricing escalations, and a lot of industries in the C&I, they are very, they have a huge need to be able to project their cost of sales, can we almost say, or cost, their OPEXs, for 10 years. They can't have this fluctuating. So they would then sort of incorporate and say, okay, well, I need to do that as well. And you know what, I'm not quite happy with this bill because I'm only really bringing down a couple of kilowatt hours, and sort of enter storage. But it was very much in a limbo. As I said, it's a nascent industry, it's a disruptor. And then came the total supply shortage, right? And everybody rushed off to build this market and bought themselves great big diesel generators and revved them up and said, well, we need this. And then they find out that the cost of running this diesel generator is at least $853 a kilowatt hour. So it's a little bit expensive, I can't run this to pay. And slowly the perception of, well, battery needs to pay its way. And battery can, because it provides them with that backup of supply, but it also can be utilized to pay its way. It must pay its rent, right? I've procured you. You're a hefty investment. So you use it for arbitrage, so they can actually then start shifting their peaks and start shifting their loads. And this is where they took the transition from where storage would give you maybe 28% reduction on your energy bill PV on its own can give you 28% reduction. Couple that to storage, you unlock the PV's abilities. You can expand because you can overscale your self-generation, shall we call it, and you can take it to almost 50-60%, sort of reduction. So your returns on investments, where PV followed this path of hitting rock bottom of pricing, you know what I mean? So it was initially 12 years when we entered the market, came down to maybe 7 years return on investment. Storage then coupled to that took it back to 12 years. But now it's bringing it down to 5. We've got myriad case studies of between 4 and 5%. So I think it sort of serves to give in the best of all worlds from a C&I market space. The challenge is, as I said, it's a nascent industry, it's a disruptor. And one of the things that we're looking at a disruptor is, are we a disruptor or is the energy space disrupted? And I think we need to take that viewpoint. The energy space is disrupted. Our disruptive energy brings the two together and actually nets it, you know what I mean, to being a baseline. So it's got its merits, but the application of it, I think, is where we have to do a lot of knowledge sharing, and we have to do a lot of training, and we have to do a lot of sharing. And unfortunately, people in these times are very resistant to sharing case studies. Everybody's very sort of closed up. I'm talking from the supplier's point of view, to get them to unlock and say, look, we're comrades in arms, you know what I mean? Whether I'm going LiFePO or salt or sodium or free flow or whatever, we've got an end goal. And it's actually to encourage the entities to be able to make those informed decisions. And that's where there's a divide, and that's why we're not seeing that fast traction. But if you look at the theme of this whole event, which is the energy transition, if you look at where Eskom is and the transmission grid that we have to unbundle, right? There's amazing technologies going forward. We've got hydrogen conversations, heaven forbid, we've got some nuclear conversations. These are technologies that are far off. They're very far off still. And there's a lot of investment, there's a lot of path, there's a lot of learning to go. But if you wanted to expand the grid, you'd need huge amounts of capital, which we don't have. We already have a deficit and billions, that are owed to things. So if you look at storage, I think storage almost has that little foundation. It's almost that little stepping stone that enables us to stabilize the grid, to expand the grid, and then look to where we take the transition forward, to expansion.
Yeah. And there's a lot of innovation happening in this market. We've seen from the small battery storage components right up to utility scale, where it's become so innovative and very competitive in the market as well. But I want to talk about, what is your blue sky vision for the battery energy storage market? I can see you're very passionate about this market. What is it that is the ultimate?
Yeah, I'm passionate about doing the energy transition. I'm passionate about changing us, taking us to the next level. I mean, if we need to respect the fact that we are gridders and our transmission gridders. Without them, the country faces systemic risk. So we shouldn't be in opposition to our utilities, but we should be enablers to the utilities. And that means that we have to have an energy mix. So an energy mix is made up of multiple players and multiple actors. And it's going to be, if there should be, small portions of gas, then it's going to sort itself out.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That balance is going to sort itself out. But from the storage perspective, we need to create the ability to understand and be able to unlock what storage can do. So I think that my blue sky vision would be we're busy with the energy storage handbook, and this morning we had one of the debates on it where we said, let's call it a guide. Let's not call it a handbook, because a handbook is going to be like bedside reading and put me to sleep. So let's talk about a guide. Now, where we see the fall off is, and that's what I would like to see, is where a customer, an end user, because at the end of the day, let's say it's you, it's Nicolette. Nicolette wants to procure storage. Whether she's a small homeowner, or she's got a great big C&I industry, or she's running a great big mine, she wants to procure storage. But she doesn't understand the technology, because there are multiple use cases and multiple scenarios to make the business case. Now there are 5 anxious competitors wanting your business. So they're thinking on promoting the sale of the battery system to you. But nobody's able to bridge that intelligent conversation to say, how do we see it? Do you understand? So the education needs to come to the end users and to the distributors, the municipalities and everybody else. What can this disruptor do? That we can get that knowledge base out there, and that we can get everybody onto the same page, so that we can actually engage and have, the conversation. So Nicolette needs to know, right, I want to do the battery. What can the battery do? It's going to keep me out of load shedding. But guess what, Nicolette? Did you know that you can actually bank your energy and put it out into peak times? And you're going to reduce your load. And while you're doing that, Nicolette, you're actually stabilizing the grid. If you're in City Power welcomes you because you're actually load shifting. Guess what you did upstream? And then we start getting this community response. So what we would like to see is, there's a picture that I've shown everybody, and unfortunately I don't have it here that I can show you. But if you had to look where the end goal is, the total blue sky. If we look where we are now, you've got a little nucleus, which is our ESCOM. And you've got all of these little slaves and dots, and these are all the consumers. Something happens here, you cut them all off. Right? So then we went to the distributed situation, which is still good. You've got a couple of little central nucleuses all joined together, but this one could still fall. This little leg could fall. So distribution is the next level. But if you went to the one where it's the community, which is all of us, SA Incorp, I call it the good ship SA Energy, which is sinking at the moment and needs to be salvaged. How do we salvage the good ship SA? Is that if you could connect all of those dots, and each of them were individual prosumers and consumers and generators. So Nicolette with her house, with her storage and her PV, is utilizing, and she's putting back into the grid the CNI. Then you've got a multiple dashboard of little dots, which are all nucleuses, and every one of them is serving each other. And that would be the perfect world, because in that way we would actually bring down the price of energy, we would stabilize it, we would have security of supply, we would have the expansion, and we would alleviate what is, I think, the burning thing now, which is we've got an energy poverty situation in South Africa, and the energy poverty situation in South Africa is actually driving poverty. We are not going to get that LED and the expansion that we need. You know what I mean? So it's to get this whole, if you could picture this board and this whole dashboard of all these little dots, were all little generators and nucleuses, big and small, big utility. You know, City Power's got 20 10 megawatt batteries. There's 50 million little Nicolettes, you know what I mean, with their 1 kilometer system. Can you imagine that world? And how we would fix it? And it's actually doable, it's practical, and it's here. And if you think from pricing, I get so frustrated because everyone says, but battery storage is so expensive. No one's doing that modeling to see what all benefits is, because they're just looking at the price of it. They're not looking at what it does. I mean, if you think of battery in an industrial application, do you know how industry suffers with load shedding? I mean, if you take a big paper plant, I mean, that downtime is huge losses to them. You're seeing people retrenching people, you know, laying people off. There's a whole negative, you know, downtrend to it. So if you had to do that all-inclusive cost, you know, of what the battery gives, then it's a no-brainer. But it's to get that message there.
It's an excellent blue sky vision that you have there, and as you say, it is doable and it is practical.
Yes, that's affordable.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us in the studio.
All right, thank you very much, Nicolette. It was an honor to be here.
And thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe to ESI Africa for more of this type of content.